Goldgrass is my co-chair, but we've agreed that I'm sort of the talking head. And I'll do mostly the blithering in between stuff. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming on such a beautiful evening, especially when the Blue Jays are playing Houston, I guess, tonight. And there were a lot of people heading up to the stadium. They just walked by. Anyway, we've got an interesting evening lined up. First, I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land in which we gather is the territory of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Chippewa, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. We pay tribute to the legacy of all First Peoples of Canada. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the communities that have grown in the treaty lands. I am kind of struck, I'm staggered actually that about 2 hours ago I got news that Charlie Kirk was assassinated today here
Yes.
on a university campus in
Yes.
Utah. He was a very articulate young fellow of a conservative viewpoint, but he would go anywhere and talk more or less to anyone in a cheerful, informative, thoughtful way. I thought he was terrific. He had 2 beautiful young kids, beautiful wife, and he was taken from us this afternoon by some assassin who I believe remains at large, last I heard. So that's incredibly tragic. I think if we're going to have public discussions about public issues and they end that way, then we're all in big trouble. So I want to acknowledge that. It seems like we should acknowledge that just over 80 years ago, I think it was September 2nd, actually, 1945, the surrender was signed on in Tokyo Bay, the end of World War II, a struggle which killed maybe, 60 million people. My granddad went off and was away from his kids who were 4 and 6 and didn't see them for 6 years. But he came back. Luckily, a lot of people didn't. So I think we should be grateful to our forefathers who have paid those sorts of prices and in some cases lost their lives in these terrible struggles, as well as to the treaties and so on. We stand on the shoulders of giants in many ways. So thank you for coming. We're going to have an interesting show and have talks from our various elected representatives or their representatives in some cases. In terms of what's been going on, we're going to hear from Joe what's going on with waterfront revitalization, the sort of next phase, what's in the future, I think, is going to be the focus more or less. So there'll be some stuff, I hope, that we haven't heard before that we're going to learn about. So that's really great. It's been a very exciting project that we've all been following for, 20 years or so. And so we welcome him. We've had a bad decision out of the Liquor License Tribunal in June, which had to do with the Rebel nightclub that you may have heard about. I was involved in a previous round of this litigation as a lawyer representing YQNA, but not involved in this last round. Decision came down. It's a bit convoluted, but essentially the upshot is that the sound bylaw that was passed in 2019 kind of governs, which means that it's a mechanistic sort of approach where if there are a certain number of decibels at the property line, then that's it. It doesn't matter if people are disturbed or not. So evidence that people on the island were disturbed was essentially viewed as more or less irrelevant. That seems unfortunate. The city is appealing it. The islanders are appealing it. Whether YQNA or one of the resident associations would get involved at the divisional court, I don't know yet. We were involved in divisional court before. I'm not really keen to spend months and months on this, but it might be necessary, so we'll see where that goes. But we've had a fabulous opening of YQNA. I'm sure by this time you've all been there. It's fantastic. There's a lot of other stuff going on. There's transit expansion to talk about. There's the Island Airport RISA extension. There's a proposal for a hovercraft, as you may have heard. There's always interesting stuff to do with Therme and their financial wherewithal and what, if anything, is actually happening at Ontario Place that Chris Glover will tell us about. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Tom, who is here for Ausma, Malik. And we've known Tom, he's been here, I couldn't say how many times he's been to a YQNA meeting, but it would be a great, very large number, and we always welcome him.
I definitely use the mic. Thank you. Great. Well, good to be here in person again with YQNA, and then I know your organization continues to be advocates with our office, with the community on a range of issues affecting this neighborhood and across the broader waterfront. I was asked to provide some main topics for updates, and then we can take other questions as well. Just touching on what Ed had mentioned about the proposal around Hoverlink, a proposal that had come forward by a private operator and has established an agreement with Ports Toronto to operate out of the Island Airport lands. Deputy Mayor Malik was very focused on ensuring that there's a proper framework for analysis by the city of this proposal. She adopted through Community Council a direction for our city staff to analyze the impacts of the whole range of possible uses that the Hoverlink use would bring, including traffic, air quality, and ensuring that access through that area and the broader harbor community is maintained. So that report is to come back to the Community Council in the first quarter of 2026. And then we'll continue to be working with the communities that are implicated on ensuring that there's public engagement and discussion around how that potential operation works and how to ensure that its approvals are done thoroughly. We also have at the Island Airport the approval for the runway and safety area, which last year your organization was involved in a lot of the advocacy around that, where the approval through City Council to amend the tripartite agreement with Ports Toronto and Transport Canada was limited to the essential minimal requirement to fulfill Transport Canada's requirements for the runway safety area. We're now in a period where Ports Toronto is commissioning a construction and design consultant, and they will be coming forward this fall with that. The commitment from our office and our city staff is to ensure that Ports Toronto consults, on the construction management plan for that, which we understand will not involve any landside transportation, but rather working through the harbor. But all those details, including hours of operation, noise mitigation, and methods of construction need to be confirmed, and that needs to be done in consultation with the communities that will be affected on the harbor. Also in this past year, and from the beginning of Deputy Mayor Malik's term, there's been a commitment to ensure that there's increased and better access to one of our most important green spaces, the Toronto Island, and through a number of motions at City Council to look at how to increase that access, as well as working with projects that we're already in process, like the development of our new ferry fleet. We've had a consolidated plan to work with between city staff, working with our partners at Waterfront Toronto, who you'll be hearing from shortly, to adopt a number of measures on the short, medium, and long term to make sure that our most important park on the waterfront is even better accessible. So key to that was approving a task force of city staff and Waterfront Toronto to lead the development of planning, ideas, and future design work, and certainly consultation on all those measures that can take place in the short, medium, and long term. So throughout the summer, you've seen the immediate plans that have gone into effect at the terminal, that things that can be done through quick hits, like the basic enhancement of the aesthetic appearance of the terminal. There's been better methods of queuing, there's been better organization of the ferry schedule. All these things have been done on an immediate basis. as well as partnering with water taxi operators to allow for more and increased access through other methods as well. What we'll be seeing in the future and continue to draw out is more enhancements based on elements that require a bit more planning. You've seen the development of a shade structure there. There's even better plans that are in the works in order to put something more established in. And then looking to the future, some more modifications to the terminal on a basis of, in the medium term, reorganizing the space, and then revisiting the commitment to a new design and enhanced ferry terminal through a continuation of the design process that started probably more than 10 years ago now. So an updating of that, all led through in partnership with Waterfront Toronto. So those commitments to improved enhancement are going to be continuous from now until we achieve those goals. At the same time, we're also expecting the arrival of our new ferry fleet, which will be larger, electric, and more efficient in terms of their ability to work through difficult conditions, so more reliability in terms of that ferry service. Those ferries are planned to be delivered they're planned to be arriving at the end of next year for the first one, which will be a vehicle and pedestrian combined ferry like one of them is right now, and a further ferry before the season begins in 2027. So that next phase of enhanced service with new ferries is something we're tracking very carefully, ensuring that the timelines for that are being met. And that, of course, involves also the modification to the ferry terminal area itself, where you see the construction that started. That's based upon preparing the infrastructure necessary to manage the electric ferries themselves. So a couple of changes that are happening right in the immediate. You've seen the departure of the Trillium ferry as of a couple of days ago. That's being put in dry dock now due to the necessary space requirements to make those infrastructure improvements. You'll see the start of more in-water work in the next week or so, which means that the Nguyen, the ferry that takes vehicles across the island, won't be operating. Instead, the ferry passenger ferries will continue, but traffic will be continuing through, or vehicle traffic transportation will be continuing through the airport through collaboration with them until the end of the year. So all those elements are in place, and we're committed to keeping those close eye and ensuring that those timelines are continuing. Then, also want to mention, of course, our partners here on the waterfront, the cultural institution in the community, Harbourfront Center, just a tremendous amount of work that's been done under the leadership of Kathy, Loblaw, their new CEO, their entire leadership team in terms of the programming that's taken place there, as well as looking very seriously at the sustainable future of that important institution. We've been working and collaborating, of course, as of last year on the enhancements to the campus itself, the front-facing community recreation elements of that, with the inclusion of the renewal of the ice rink, and then as well, we are looking at opportunities to even enhance that feature. And I know there's one of those elements is a commitment to engagement, stakeholder engagement and outreach that involves a public-facing workshop and stakeholder involvement with the YQNA, and we'll be discussing that more with you as this busy summer season is wrapped up with the summer programming. And then finally, just want to make a note again on one of the most important elements that the YQNA has championed all along. It's the continuation of that vital transit link, the East Waterfront LRT, into the new waterfront area. And I can say over the last year, or certainly more than that, but within the last year, of course, the new next phase of revitalization of waterfront funding was announced. That, of course, is delivering important new housing, parks, and the infrastructure that's needed to support that. And of course, along with that is the importance of transit. We've been keeping up the momentum over the last couple of years with the continuation of design work on that LRT, up to 60% now. And I can tell you that all hands on deck and focus are on ensuring that we secure the funding for that final project within the shortest amount of time possible, so that we can get shovels in the ground and transit implemented there. So those were my main updates, and I'll take any other questions from you. Should I keep going?
Yeah, go ahead.
Carol?
Yeah, I put in a suggestion through Chris Glover for how the LRT could be built cheaper and easier. I don't know where that went. I never got any response back. That would
Okay, great.
involve
We can coordinate.
that would involve an at-grade loop on the Yonge Street infill instead of a tunnel.
Instead of a tunnel.
Yes.
Great. Well, so I know there's this fall there'll be an opportunity for an update on the design process and public comment on that. So there's certainly an ongoing process, and we'll make sure that
Okay,
these
thank you.
types of things are considered.
I guess I have a question that has to do with scooters. There's been a lot of, or scooters and electric vehicles seem to be controversial. Is there any news on that?
Well, you know, as again, you were advocates and involved in that process of consideration of the province offered the opportunity for a pilot project to allow for scooters to be legalized, and the city ultimately turned that down. So there's no, they remain illegal to use on our public streets. As of last year, the city was developing further its micro-mobility strategy to have clarity in its bylaws around which types of which type of small vehicles are permitted within different areas. Multi-use trails are protected bikeways, streets, and other areas. And so, as part of that, the Deputy Mayor, we recognize that along the waterfront there is an incredible amount of use and popularity for these trails by cyclists and others, and it also requires that those lanes be used properly. So there's currently an education campaign being undertaken by the city, which vehicle, which type of device to use in which area. And I know there's also a work being done by Toronto Police in order to underline what are those proper uses of the roadways.
I think the lady back there has had a question. Patient wait, yeah.
Thanks, Tom. Two questions. Quickly, if you could give us a little update on Reese Park, is it still on the books, or when might it start?
Oh, right.
And the second question was, I don't think I've got the title proper, but there's a movement afoot on behalf of certain businesses to approach the city to be able to have their institutions open all night. Could you perhaps tell us what in this area would be the kind of institution that would be open all night? Tour boats, restaurants, bars. We're just coming to grips with our new neighbors at Queens Harbor on noise levels, and we've developed a fairly good professional partnership with them, and they've been very responsive. At least I'm in 251 here in this building, and we're working with them towards some solutions, and we have been able to talk to them and reduce the noise, but it just concerns us what more is coming our way that we might not have a say, because we're not at those tables where the businesses are pushing hard for the open all night Toronto thing.
Yeah, the night economy thing.
Yeah, so on Reese Park, there is work being done by our city planning as city park staff in collaboration with Waterfront Toronto to make sure that the planning for that park is up to date. Some of that initial design work had been done quite a while ago, so we will be looking forward to this fall for more updates on the next steps in terms of what that vision looks like and the timelines for implementation. So it is coming soon. And what we wanted to ensure was that the park was responsive to the entire needs of the Harbourfront precinct and the wider waterfront, assessing things that have changed. For example, there is no longer the need for a Toronto Water shaft that was to be part of the Inner Harbour Tunnel. So that's a major modification that will allow for even more benefit to be had out of the park. So, and then in terms of the night economy, my other colleagues in the office are following that file more closely, but there's nothing that I have heard that is talking about any of the venues in this area operating all night, and it's certainly something I'll make sure that when I go back, we're checking and updating the YQNA.
Sure.
I was wondering if there's a mechanism when a works team digs or has to excavate in the granite set pavement, that they don't finish it off by slopping asphalt into the defect and leaving it there to the continuing defacement of the walkway, which was really the pride and joy of the Waterfront. As I came here tonight, there was a machine tamping down asphalt into a hole that they dug out and filled in today.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, and so absolutely, and this is a process that's been a problem for much of the downtown, and so there has been a significant amount of attention paid to it. There's been direction from City Council and supported by the Deputy Mayor to look at how do we tighten up the time period between utility work and restoration, because up to this point, that time gap has been officially months and then oftentimes years. So there has been a focus on that and direction, which I will make sure that I go back to get the update on and provide that to you. But it's certainly the case that the contractors come in, they're not responsible for restoration, it's someone else, and we need to see how we can tighten up that time period as quickly as possible, if not provide immediate restoration.
I was just
One
curious,
last question.
I was curious about the e-bike situation, because they're very dangerous, they do not follow the rules of the road. So I wondered if the city's considering licensing them, and they have to pass, just like we would with a car. We have to know the rules of the road. Because they're all over the sidewalks, they're breezing through stop signs, like it's very dangerous.
So in licensing, there's been a long history of review of the effectiveness of that option and the cost benefit and what you can get out of it. There's actually a city webpage that lists that historic record. So there's been a lot of analysis and thought put into whether that is an effective way of getting results, and it's been determined that it isn't. So in terms of the no approach, so the pieces that we've committed to and council is directed is, first of all, ensuring that there's proper cycling infrastructure so people have the proper option to utilize those off-trail, sidewalk and off-street options. Then there is clarity around what can be used in each area, because there is now a range of these types of devices that are out there, and it needs to be clear what can be utilized where. And then thirdly, there is working with our Toronto Police Services and communications departments, an effective education campaign.
They don't follow the rules of the road, basically, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, well, I think we're going to move on because we have to kind of move. We've got Chris waiting here. Thanks so much, Tom.
Thanks so much.
I think Chris needs no introduction, so I'm just going to skip an introduction. We all know who he is already.
Okay. That's all I get.
Yeah, that's all you get.
So, for those of you who don't know, I am Chris Glover. I'm the MPP for Spadina-Fort York. It's my incredible honor to serve this community. I want to thank Neil and Ed for organizing this meeting. YQNA, like all of us go to many neighborhood association meetings. YQNA is always the best attended. Like, you are the most active group, and I was just saying to someone earlier, if we had these in every neighborhood in the province, we would not be facing the issues that we're facing, because you guys are so well informed and you keep yourselves well informed. So I'll do my part tonight to provide a little bit more information. I just want to pick up on something that Tom was talking about that he didn't actually mention, that the city deserves great credit for, is building affordable housing. with the city under, Mayor Chow and Ausma and the team at City Hall is building more affordable housing in the city of Toronto than's been built since 1995. They've got, yes, I know nobody knows about this, so Tom, you should talk about this, but there's a 900 unit co-op going up on Eglinton Avenue East. In our riding, and across the city, but in our riding, there's a city parking lot, and they're making a swap with a developer. So in exchange for the value of the land, the developer has to build 30% of the units as affordable units. There is affordable housing projects that have come to fruition just down the street here. So, the city's actually doing its share of building affordable housing, and we need to do, so let's give them a round of applause for what they're doing. This is the biggest crisis that we're facing. At the provincial level, I don't have a whole lot of faith in this government, but I do have faith in our non-government sector. And so I'm working closely with Evangel Hall. Raise your hand if you know Evangel Hall. One person. Okay, so Evangel Hall, Tom does. Okay, it's run by the Presbyterian Church, and they operate 2 supportive housing buildings downtown for people who have been experiencing homelessness. They also provide homeless services, so they provide showers and other services to people experiencing homelessness. And they are working with other church groups because church groups tend to have declining congregations and real estate that they are interested in getting stuff, they need a financial return on, but they're also interested in getting a social benefit. So they're negotiating with church groups in different parts of the city to turn some churches, former churches, into affordable housing. So there's an option there, and I've spoken with credit unions, another non-government organization. They're interested in potentially funding some of these projects. So there's ways to get stuff done, and that's what I've been working on for the last year. And I'm hoping that we're going to have a project coming to fruition in the not too distant future. Now, Ed asked me to talk about Ontario Place. So I don't know if you saw the revelations this summer, but so Therma, when they applied for the lease, the 95-year lease on our public parkway, they said that they were operating 6 spas in Europe. They were in fact only owning and operating 1 spa in Europe, in Romania. The other ones, they took the name Therma from a company that owned spas and operated spas in Germany, but they weren't affiliated with that company. Then what really came out this summer was, the question had been, they had to have $100 million in equity in order to be eligible to apply for this lease. And in 2018, they were broke. They had almost no negative equity. And in 2019, they had 1.6, according to the Auditor General, they had $1.6 million. 2020, the year they signed the lease, suddenly they have $100 million in equity. And I asked the Auditor General, like, where did they get it? And she didn't know, she couldn't figure it out, but the Toronto Star found out what happened this summer. So what they did was, they claimed as equity money they expect to make from a spa that's not yet built in Germany. So it's like you go to the bank and you say, hey, I want a mortgage for $1 million house. And they say, well, how much do you make? And you say, well, right now I'm making nothing, but I'm expecting to make $150,000 a year based on a company that I'm starting soon. And the bank would, okay, the bank would, the bank manager would, very politely say, well, thank you very much for coming in. Tell us when you're making the 150 and then come back. But, it's absolutely ludicrous. And we're keep digging into this thing because it is a corrupt deal. There's no way this government has signed this, just on the merits of the deal. And one of the areas that we're investigating right now is the IMCO. The IMCO is an arm's length corporation of the government that manages its investments. And so the IMCO gave Aries Management, a company, actually I got to back up a little bit. In 2018, Ford's chief of staff replaced the board of directors of the IMCO. In 2019, the IMCO gave Aries Management $500 million of our dollars to manage, which there's nothing wrong with it. It's an investment company, so they were supposed to invest this $500 million. In 2021, the Aries Management bought Doug Ford's company, Deco Labels, in Chicago. So the way the legislation works, this, if Doug Ford was a staff member in the Ontario government, he would not have been able to make it. This deal should not have gone through. He would have had to declare a conflict of interest, you know, and he would not, this deal would not have gone through. But the rules around conflict of interest are looser for MPPs than they are for staff of the government. If you're a staff member of the Ontario government, you, if there's the perception that there could be a conflict of interest, you have to declare that conflict of interest, and you have to recuse yourself from any discussion or voting powers in those decisions. But if you're an MPP, it's not that there can be only the appearance of a conflict of interest, there actually has to be a conflict of interest. So you have to prove that there's a tit for tat, that there is, you know, an exchange of some, that Doug Ford actually benefited from this deal. And that's what we're investigating now, because the deal itself makes no sense whatsoever. And so we're gonna keep on digging, because I still have hope that we're gonna be able to save our public parkland down at Ontario Place, because this deal should never have been signed, it should not be going through. And the amount of profile that it's got, when I go anywhere in Ontario, everybody knows about Ontario Place and about this deal. So we're just gonna keep pushing. Let's see, the other thing I was asked to talk about, bike lanes. So the court decision came down and it said that the provincial government doesn't have the power to rip out the bike lanes. It's being appealed. And that's, you know, it's before the courts. I've got a few other things I want to go through, but if people want to ask more questions about the bike lanes, I'll leave that for the end. Let's see, provincial parks. So the other thing that's happened this summer is the government, remember Ford, when he was elected in February, he said that he wanted to build a new provincial park. That was part of the platform. Well, he's now selling off parts of our provincial parks. Wasaga Beach is the world's longest freshwater beach, and he is giving, the plan is to give 60% of the beachfront, the provincial park beachfront, to the town of Wasaga Beach. And then the Wasaga Beach town, it seems that they've got developers lined up for that property. So I went up to Wasaga Beach this summer in August, and we had a press conference, and I spoke with the former mayor of Wasaga Beach, and the community is up in arms about it. They do not want this deal to go through. So I'm working with the local community there, and we're trying to mobilize people across the province to protect our provincial parks. And I do have a petition here, so I'll leave some at the back. If you would like to sign the petition, please do. Okay. Let's see. The other thing about real estate, I now own, well, lease a little bit of real estate down here in the York Quay neighborhood. I still live up in Fort York, but I have a kayak rack at the Harbourfront Canoe and Kayak Center. And Ed has been kind enough to show me the ropes, and we've gone up to the channels around, and we've gone down to the new park and explored the waterfront. And if you've never been, it is absolutely spectacular. Like the moment you cross and you get into the channels between the islands, it's like you're out of the city. Mm-hmm. There are egrets there, there's a bald eagle's nest there, there's like swans and, yeah, okay. People here could probably name the birds and things better than I can, but it is really a wildlife refuge over there. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to visit. So thank you, Ed, for showing me around. Let's see, other things. I'm the Shadow Minister for Sport, and FIFA World Cup is coming up. So I've been working with the Minister of Sport. We're trying to get the province to continue to actually up their funding for the FIFA, because this is going to be a world event. And actually tickets apparently are going on sale today. So if you're a soccer fan, you know, get in line and grab some tickets, because this is going to be a really, really wonderful event. Let's see, in my own office, we had a barbecue in August. We had last weekend, we had a Bollywood event. It was our second annual Bollywood event. If you missed it, we're going to do it every year. So next year, if you want to learn some Bollywood dance moves, you can come out and join us. Our next big event in the office is the Hollapalooza, which is our holiday festival. It's coming up in early December. If you are not on my email list, join my email list. I'll leave some business cards at the back, and then you can keep updated on the things that we're working on. And I think that's it for me.
Great.
I'll open up to questions.
Thanks so much. Ula's got her hand up, so when Ula has her hand up, we listen.
Okay.
I have a question about sound, the spa.
Yeah.
Apparently, the contract says if they are not capable of completing the project, they can choose a successor of what comes in that parkland, former
Yes.
parkland.
Yeah.
Tell me I'm wrong.
No, I wish I could tell you you're wrong, but if they don't have the financial wherewithal to actually complete the project, they can sell the lease, and the new lease owners can repurpose the lease. So it doesn't have to be a spa. It could be a casino.
It's scary.
It's scary. I know. It's a ridiculous deal. It's absolutely insane. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
You must be on that, right? And we've emailed and, whoops. No, actually, come on up. And you're gonna talk for our new MP and, who we haven't seen yet, but we're gonna see her next time apparently on our Zoom meeting in November. So tell us about who you are and who she is, and I think she either did live here, she lived here in the past, I believe. Is that, have I got that right?
I believe she lives a little north,
Okay.
but I don't think she lived in.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anyway, good. Let us know. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Iman. I am a part of MP Nguyen's team. She is the Member of Parliament for Spadina Harbourfront. Thank you so much for having me here today. On behalf of Chi Nguyen, I wanted to express her sincerest apologies for not being able to attend today's meeting, as she is currently in Edmonton for the National Caucus. I'm here representing our office to listen to what matters most to you, whether it be about Harbourfront Centre, the Island Airport, or developments in the East Waterfront. I'm here to listen and bring this feedback directly to the MP. Thank you. I don't know if I can really answer any questions, but if there are any questions that you do have, I can take note of them and take them back to the Member of Parliament.
Well, I don't know. I suppose we believe, we have heard that there will be a push to get jets at the Island Airport at some point, materializing. Perhaps in the next few months. It's kind of let's call it a rumor that seems to come up a lot. And I'm just wondering if there's anything to that. Is the federal government discussing that? Has there been? There seems to be lobbying going on in that, moving in that direction. Are you aware of that? Is that true or not?
I believe my other colleagues are more familiar with that case, but I can definitely look into getting an answer to that question.
Okay.
Yeah, the federal government is the main contributor financially to Harbourfront Centre, and they really need more financial stability. So please bring to Chi that we would love for you to pitch in even more.
Of course, thank you so much. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming. See you next time. I guess lunch a little while ago, and we were sort of saying, well, where's the harbor? Where are we going with waterfront revitalization? And let's have a talk and throw some ideas around and what's going on. And he seemed to be full of things that I don't think he could necessarily quite share with me, but I hope that he'll be able to share at least some of them with us tonight. Joe?
And thank you, Neil, for driving the slides and getting that set up. First of all, it's so nice to be back. I'm looking around, I see so many friendly faces. I know I'm here in my capacity as the new Chief Strategy and Public Affairs Officer at Waterfront Toronto, but my full-time job most of the time is I'm a dad. So I have a 6-year-old, this is the only night I'm out this week. When I used to see you, I used to be out 7 nights a week. And so it's a new world, but it's great to be here. Waterfront Toronto, I should also say, we work on behalf of all 3 orders of government. And so it's great to be here alongside my former colleague, Tom, and the fabulous Chi office, and Chi, who's wonderful, our new MP, and Chris, of course. So listen, let me start with, I think it is an incredibly exciting time for Toronto's waterfront. In many ways, I kind of feel like the waterfront is ready to launch into a new era. And this new era, it's kind of coming full circle. You know, when I think of our waterfront, Toronto's waterfront, it was our point of origin. Like, this is where we began. Toronto's waterfront began as a gathering place. Then it was a transportation hub. Then it was an industrial zone. And it is in the process of transforming itself yet again into a new mixed-use area where people live, work, and play. And in many ways, it's going to be at the forefront of the future of this city. And when Toronto's waterfront does well, the city does well, the province does well, and the country does well. And that's the scale and ambition of the project in front of us. Now, if you go to the next slide, and Neil, thank you again for driving the slides. I want to give you a picture of the eastern waterfront, of what's to come. So much of our work in the YQNA and the work in the past with Waterfront Toronto has been anchored in the central waterfront. But when you look at this, ultimately the eastern waterfront will be home to around 100,000 people. That is Peterborough, the size of Peterborough, on the edge of downtown, in the eastern waterfront, and it will be a city where you can live, where you can work, and where you can play. It's rather transformational. You can see there on the map, located here, Okwemen-Minising. Ed, you did a great job pronouncing that earlier, by the way. That is the new island that is being built. If you go to the next slide, just to anchor this, Waterfront Toronto, for those who don't know, Waterfront Toronto is a tri-governmental corporation. It was founded 20 years ago, just over 20 years ago, by the three orders of government to set forth a common vision for our waterfront, but also to seek to implement. But Waterfront Toronto is not a redevelopment corporation. It is a revitalization corporation tasked with thinking about, from a broad set of public policy objectives, how do we reduce urban sprawl and tackle sustainability? How do we increase housing and affordable housing? How do we build truly sustainable communities, different types of communities? And how do we create the parks and public spaces that really make places livable? And all the while, in advancing reconciliation, how do we build a new city, that one we can all truly be proud of? I'd like to say simply, at a high level, our task is to reorient our city back to the lake, from our back door to, once again, our front door. So that's who Waterfront Toronto is. If you go to the next slide, so where we've been and where we're going, just a couple sample pictures. Many of you will know the places. If you go to the next slide, this is 25 years ago. In the top left, that's Corus Quay. In the bottom left, that's the East Bayfront neighborhood. The top right, that's Corktown Commons in the West Don Lands. And in the bottom right, that's Sugar Beach. That's 25 years ago. Go to the next slide. That's today. This is, you know, one of the things that's always struck me, and I've been around, like many of you, this waterfront my whole life. I was a summer camper at Harbourfront Center, and you know, being around the waterfront, it always feels like it's not happening fast enough. And it's not. We should always drive and be urgent for change quicker, better change quicker, that is. But this incremental work is happening, and it's happening in real time. Now go to the next slide. This is what's happened in real time and will complete this year. Portland's flood protection. So if you look at the map here on the left, all of this area down here, that's the Portlands. That was infill. Everything in blue, prior to flood protection, was in the floodplain. You could not develop properly, and in a Hurricane Hazel type event happening all the more frequently, we would see that type of flood pattern. Over the last 8 years, Waterfront Toronto, on behalf of the three orders of government, worked on this. It's the largest civil engineering project in North America to undertake flood protection for the eastern waterfront, to renaturalize the Don River, to reconnect the Don River with the lake. And if you look here, this is what's now being created. Flood protection will complete this year. So what has that done? What is flood protection? Well, if you go to the next slide, this 8-year project So the innovative design, first and foremost, has renaturalized the Don. That river that Chris was talking about kayaking up with Ed, that river has reconnected the lake to the Don. And that river is our form of flood protection. But what it's also done, it is flood protected nearly 500 acres of land, including the entire Portlands, which will ultimately, and this is a 50-year project to build it out, will be home to a lot of people. So go to the next slide. This is to give you the context. This is today, and I want to anchor with what's to come next in some of our work. In the blue above, those what's called Quayside. That's a 12-acre parcel of land anchored by Parliament Slip, which is right there. And this is this new island that's being created by YQNA. If you go to the next slide, I'm going to show you what it's going to look like in the future. That's what's coming. Over the next 20 years, this island called YQNA, where the river exists and the parks below, will include homes for 15,000 people, including 30% of those homes will be affordable housing. It will include jobs where 9,000 people will work, and it will be anchored by 48 acres of river and parkland. If you go to the next slide. So where are we going? How are we getting to that vision in the eastern waterfront? I want to tell you a little bit about what's next, and it's not just going to be in the east, but much of it will be anchored in that conversation. So in January of this year, the three orders of government of the city, the federal government, and the province committed $975 million as part of a new tranche of funding to continue waterfront revitalization. That will ultimately help to create 14,200 homes, and we're in a process right now to increase the density to make that larger. It will provide 100,000 jobs, and it will in turn generate $13.2 billion in value to the Canadian economy. Now, if you go to the next slide, so what is it we're working on? This next phase of waterfront revitalization, it's grounded first and foremost in building 2 new neighborhoods, but then it's going to come back to this pillar I'm going to come back to in this, which is thinking once again about how we stitch and connect our waterfront together. But first, it's focused on these neighborhoods, in the neighborhoods of Quayside and this new island of YQNA, where we're going to build 9,100 homes on public land. We're also going to be helping to enable some development on private land. We're also undertaking a series of waterfront studies to look at how we create the right constellation of attractions along the waterfront and how we improve marine use coordination, water-based transportation. And we're also doing some interesting activation work I'm going to touch on. Let me show you what this looks like if we go to the next slide. This is really, I showed you a rendering, but just to get really specific here to understand it, this is Quayside, this is Parliament Slip, Parliament Street's above it. That's where we're starting with building housing. In fact, we are building 550 affordable housing units there that the City of Toronto will own in perpetuity, so they will be affordable for all time and operated by nonprofits. We're also building 1,200 purpose-built market rental units there. And then down in YQNA, you'll see where we're starting our work to build additional housing there as well. If you go to the next slide. One of the things that was interesting to me, so we've done flood protection. So now we want to start building a new community on this island. Waterfront Toronto, our model, we build both affordable housing, but we work with the private sector to also build market housing. And so when we were doing our market soundings, we're talking to the private sector to say, what's it going to take for you to invest billions of dollars to build housing in this new neighborhood? Like, what are the conditions that will make you invest? The private sector said to us, we'll come in and spend $13 billion to help build new housing here, but we need the following things. We need flood protection. That's now done. They said we need all the public infrastructure in place. We're building it now. They said we need transit. I'm going to come back to that in a second. That's come up today. And then the last thing they said, which I really appreciate this, is they said there needs to be a here. What is this new island? Nobody knows about it. How are we going to invest in it? And so our response to that is we're creating an early activation program on this new island of YQNA over the next 10 years. We're turning this new park we're building right now into a space for pop-up events, winter markets, cultural festivals. We're going to create a 10-year activation program in the park to help create a sense of place there, while we turn it into a permanent neighborhood in the future. If you go to the next slide, so where are we going separate than building these two new neighborhoods in Quayside and O'Quayman-Minnesing? This is something over lunch Ed and I were talking about. Part of Waterfront Toronto's mandate is not just the hard infrastructure to do the flood protection and build the infrastructure and help enable and build the homes. It's also to think about this waterfront as a whole. How do we have a common identity? How do we attract investment? How do we realize our full potential? So if you go to the next slide, two pieces we're focused on. One is connectivity. And when we talk about connectivity, this is looking at it from multiple modes. So on a connectivity side, the pieces we're working on right now is marine use and also the LRT I'm going to come right back to. But on marine use, this is a really exciting one for us, is working closely with the City of Toronto and Creatio and ports for their inner harbor work. We're looking at an integrated approach to think about not just how the ferries go to and from the islands, but how do we start moving people east-west? One of the pilot projects we're looking at is a sea bus opportunity to actually move people from a lot of the new housing or destinations that exist in the east or the west, traversing east-west. Imagine stopping at George Brown College and the Harbourfront Center and others to start to think around a consistent inner harbor marine use approach, one that looks to minimize conflicts, of course, at all times and is safe and convenient. If you go to the next slide, but of course the big piece is this Waterfront East Transit line. What it is, for those who aren't aware, this is a transit line from Union Station, which is slated to go through a tunnel, come up at Queens Quay, run on a dedicated right-of-way along Queens Quay, and then loop into what is now O'Quayman-Minnesing. It says Villiers Island there. It also connects up along Cherry Street, which is the Blue Rising North. Ultimately, this vision is to connect into a new East Harbour Transit Station, which will be over here. And that's an Ontario line stop. So this is a critical secondary line to connect into Union Station in the west and East Harbour in the east. This is critical. Today, 25,000 people live along that blue corridor who don't have transit today. By 2031, 35,000 people will live along that blue corridor without adequate public transit. Ultimately, as I told you off the top, we're talking about 100,000 people moving into the full east waterfront over the next 50 years. This transit line is critical. This transit line is approaching the 60% design threshold. That means this is a designed, nearly shovel-ready project. It's fully costed, it's about $2.6 billion, and we're working really closely to get all three orders of government to fund it. And I will tell you quite sincerely that I'm optimistic that we're going to see this funded in the next few months. This has been in the works for 30 years. Neighborhoods have been designed, built, and occupied on the basis that transit would be there when that opened. It hasn't opened, but I'm optimistic that it will be funded in the next couple months. I'm also optimistic, and if it is funded in the next couple months, we'll be in a position to start early works and break ground next year. If you go to the next slide, creating a vibrant year-round waterfront. Part of Waterfront Toronto's mandate has always been to look at the economic, social, and cultural value of a waterfront. And I think this is one of the pieces of work we've received some money in as part of that $1 billion package, is to look at how do we ensure that Toronto's waterfront is connected together, that is vibrant not just during the summer, but has year-round activation. And so if you go to the next slide, our work that we've been funded by governments to undertake is to develop a new waterfront destination strategy. So let me articulate what that is we're working towards. So we have a number of existing destinations along the waterfront, from the fantastic islands in the Harbourfront Center to some of these dynamic parks that had opened and others. But when you look at major waterfront cities, and we've done research on the top 10 waterfront cities in the world, they average between 10 to 14 major destinations, more than 200,000 people per destination a year. We're sitting at 3 destinations that make that mark. If we are going to reorient our city to the lake, we want to animate it year-round. And so our waterfront destination strategy is looking at 3 outcomes. What is the strategy? What are the deliverables? First, is articulating a clear vision. What are the destinations we have today? What are the ones we want to see and the types of uses come tomorrow? Who are the user groups today? Who are the user groups we want to see come tomorrow? That's the first, is the top line overarching vision. The second is to look at a short list of opportunity sites that could be future destinations. When I talked about the port lanes in this new island of Aquaman-Minising, we've identified parcels of land on that new island that we ultimately think could be new destinations. Is it a museum? What is it? We don't presuppose the outcome, but we're undertaking as part of this study to identify what are those sites that could be destinations and what are the potential uses. And then the third deliverable for us is an actual roadmap for delivery for those sites. This won't be a strategy to put on a shelf. The thing I will tell you as our commitment is we work on behalf of three orders of government, but we're accountable to the community. That's always been Waterfront Toronto's pledge. In fact, it's sort of been our hallmark, is robust local community engagement. And so in the coming, you'll hear from us in the months ahead as we start to do a deep dive on what is our vision for the type of connected waterfront from a year-round activation perspective, and what are the destinations we want to see. And we're going to be doing a lot of engagement with hopefully all of you and many more to come. If you go to the last slide, I guess I would just wrap up, first of all, by reiterating my thanks for having me here today. But I hope you feel a sense of optimism about the future of our waterfront. When you look back 25 years ago to where it is today, this revitalization project, I would argue it's not only underway, it's thriving. But I would also say that, listen, Toronto's waterfront belongs to all of us. You know, it's where our city began, but I also think it's where a lot of the future excitement of our city will go, and a lot of where the future residents of our city will live. And so the job of building this waterfront will be shaped by all of us. We work on behalf of all three governments and in partnership with the community, and so we look forward to being a part of this waterfront journey together. And with that, Neil, thank you again for driving the slides. I appreciate it. And I'm happy to answer questions if there's time for that, Ed.
I just wondered if there's any thought to leaving some of the area natural, because I'm thinking of Ontario Place and how a lot of people in condos, they need space, trees, grass,
Yeah.
sun. So I just wondered if that's kind of in the plan.
Can people in the back hear the question?
I'll repeat the question.
Yeah.
And the question was, has there been thought to ensuring that we're keeping a lot of the land natural, not just buildings, but certainly retaining access to the lake and nature? Neil, if you want to do me a favor, could you go back a bunch of slides, and I just want to show you the rendering of the first phase of work we're doing here. Yeah, if you go to the 2 slides forward. One more. Here. So this island of Aquaman-Minising, I want to put it in context. This island is 98 acres in size. 48 of those acres are parks. So half of the entire island is parkland. And quite deliberately from the design, to look, how do we not replicate mistakes from the past, is all of the land on the water's edge. And what you can't see here is it wraps around all the land on the west side on Lake Ontario, that's also 20 acres of parkland, is to ensure that first of all, half of the land is set aside for parks. But the other piece I would note is that all of the land on the waterfront, to ensure that we are retaining that connection to the lake. And so I think that's certainly our commitment. Waterfront's motto has always been lead with landscape. But I use that to illustrate the version that we want to do 2 things, and we believe we can do both things at the same time. We have a desperate need to ensure that we have housing for a growing city and that people have places to live, both market and affordable housing, and we want to meet that test to address the housing crisis. But equally so, we want to ensure that we're building truly livable and sustainable neighborhoods that those residents and people who are visiting Toronto or from the broader region across Toronto can still enjoy the lake so that we're not walling it off. So I think that's our commitment wholeheartedly, I think would speak to that.
If I could just add to that, I talked to David Stonehouse, who many of us will know, who's the head of the Waterfront Secretariat of the city, And he's actually coming to he's gonna do a walk of this area probably in October. We're just looking at the date where we're gonna talk about the native plantings. In other words, there's been an enormous amount of effort made here by Waterfront Toronto and I think by the city to ensure that these are sort of native plants, native to the area. So there's an effort basically to recreate what was once here. Joe showed us what it looked like 25 years ago. We want to go back to what it looked like 200 years ago.
It's actually really, so our marine habitat team is part of this. So all of the plantings and the design of the river has been in keeping with a restoration of marine habitat. So, going so far as we have carp gates designed throughout to help to support it. But on that, it was really, when we dug down to build this river, we found seedlings in the soil that had not, from plant species that hadn't been found in the area for more than 100 years. We replanted them. And they've taken once again. But this talks about when you have an ecological focus to design, so from walleye to pike to salmon have now been found in this river. But that's from good design with an ecological focus. Yeah, no, I'm glad you. Good paint. Well done. Yeah.
I have a question. Right now, when you look towards the east in the evening, there's a huge light pollution, and that increased over the years. Is that going to disappear then?
Well, I must admit, I'm not sure which light pollution.
It's extremely bright light coming from this Portland area. When you are along the Harbourfront and you look east in the evening, there's a huge amount of light.
Okay. Well, I'll have to. I must admit, I'm not sure what the source of that light is. I'll certainly make a note to take it back if it's related to any of the construction activity.
I think it's the night
we're working. Oh, okay.
I think it's what it is, probably.
So, but I'll have to go back to look into what the source of that is.
Ula has a question. As usual.
As usual. Always annoying. How about some of the more basic things you need for a new city, like schools, hospitals, police stations, sports facilities, performance spaces, all the basic stuff.
Yeah. So at the center of Waterfront Toronto, we talk about building complete communities. And so when we do first of all, our planning and design for communities, it's to ensure that all the we just talked about ensuring that we have adequate livable parkland space, but all of our planning also goes into ensuring that we have the social infrastructure planned to be part of these neighborhoods as well. So for example, the West Dawnlands neighborhood, which is one of the first master plan neighborhoods that Waterfront Toronto helped to lead, that includes childcare as a community center, affordable housing, Indigenous health services with a school planned. It's the same in the East Bayfront neighborhood, which is now open. Childcare was located, I should note, with the leadership of my predecessor and Tom's former boss from 2 ago, Deputy Mayor Pam McConnell. That includes childcare, but it also includes a community center that's going to open in 2 weeks' time. And it's the same when we look at this island. This island, as part of the precinct plan that we have, plans for not only community facilities, so community center, library, there is a school to be located in the broader precinct here, as well as active recreation fields, not just passive park space. So I will note, so those plans are all there, and it's part of the complex financing for a lot of these projects. We always have to, I would say from my previous life, advocate to ensure those funds are there, and Waterfront works on behalf of 3 governments to make sure they are. But yes, no, we plan for it, and if we don't deliver it, we don't succeed. Yes?
Yes.
My neighbor here is very aging, and we're aging society. And we're wondering if there's going to be a retirement home or retirement at the island that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's one of the opportunities, absolutely. This is...
Living in Harbourfront.
Yeah.
Retirement.
So...
Retirement, because we are an aging society.
Yeah. So I'll tell you our housing model, so they're sort of twofold. So part of our housing model is where we work with the private sector, and there's always the potential opportunity around private retirement facilities. But I would go broader than that, is working with the province and Chris Glover is here, of course, is we've looked at quite seriously at the opportunity for seniors residences as part of our plans. Seniors residents don't qualify, aren't considered affordable housing. We need additional public subsidy to go into developing them. It's something that we've raised quite actively that we'd like to see. And so that's something we're talking with our government partners about. We were talking about it quite seriously looking at Quayside as part of that operation. We weren't able to pull it off from a public long-term care or retirement facilities, but that is something that we'd love to see, and we need some political support. But I will say, certainly at the province and at the city, there are plans for long-term care expansion within the seniors division at the city and the province, and so that's something we've looked at and we're interested in. But I might just put a little pin, given that we happen to have our provincial representative here and our de facto city councillor, because Tom worked for me, and I always said Tom was the city councillor and I worked for him. So given that we have the city councillor and our MPP here, that's something we should look at together.
I believe that Waterfront Toronto did break ground on a seniors.
The Rakai Centre.
A retirement center up here at sort of the Dawn kind
yeah,
of.
in the west. Sorry, I should have mentioned in the West Dawnlands neighborhood, one of the neighborhoods we master planned. We broke ground on a retirement center called the Rakai Centre. We broke ground just over a month and a half ago. So we've done it in the past, but with huge provincial subsidy on that one. I should know that, like, the model, unless it's a private retirement home, really requires public subsidy. And so the one we broke ground on was huge provincial subsidy. Yes, I promise I'll come right back. I want to give another chance.
I think it's really exciting what's going on in the eastern part of the waterfront. But you talked earlier about connectivity, and you also talked about mistakes of the past. And quite often in this area that we're in now, one of the mistakes of the past is it's impossible to walk along the waterfront. And I recall at one of our meetings some time ago now, there was discussion about joining some of the quays with bridges so that waterfront became accessible as a path, a walkway, which is sadly lacking in this part of the waterfront. Is that still somewhere in the planning, or is that fallen by the wayside? Or the quayside, I should say.
We refer to, the continuous water's edge promenade. You'll know, so obviously, a lot of work has gone in along different stretches of the waterfront to build these water's edge promenade. Actually, if you want to just, if you want to pop back by a few, keep going, one more forward. So like, for example, in the East Bayfront neighborhood, an effort was made to ensure that there's this continued water's edge promenade that runs along here. This is the Parliament Slip. It's running up along Parliament Slip, and then it will go around and along Quayside and continue. But I think, as you wisely note, it's in spurts. It's not continuous the whole length. And so part of Waterfront Toronto had a design program for a continuous water's edge promenade that would include a number of bridges to connect over the quays that currently exist. So we have a design for that. It's not currently funded. We have lots of great ideas that aren't funded. I went through a lot of our funded plans. One of the things we flagged, so this waterfront destination strategy. A waterfront destination strategy that we're undertaking now on behalf of governments. There will be a number of recommendations coming of it, which we hope will help to spur investment in those. This is a waterfront destination strategy is more than simply, ensuring you have 3, 4, 8, 10 sites that are interesting. It's around how you connect them together, how you create a sense of place on the waterfront. And so connectivity, we anticipate, is going to be a hallmark of that strategy and a recommendation for funding. So that's my long-winded way of saying is, yes, there are plans. Yes, they're designed. No, they're not funded. We'd like to see them in place, and we hope using the waterfront destination strategy to make the case for those connectivity moves. We also, I should note, have Tim Kocur here from the Waterfront BIA, who's like the master fundraiser. And if anybody knows how to spur investment on the side into a continuous promenade, other than the work we're doing, I'm doing a shout out to your local BIA, who's wonderful at the same time. Brian.
Thanks for coming tonight, Joe. Ed mentioned the Allen Airport earlier and the worry about effects. We know that Ports Toronto has objected to the height of buildings on the new island, for fear of planes hitting them and then needing to have a decent glide slope. We know that the island airport is using business hand over fist. We know that that's down less than half of where they were several years ago, and that there's a very serious risk that Port may abandon the island airport because it's so successful at Pearson. I guess my question to you is, have you thought about the prospect of jets? We're told that jets are the only alternative to keep that airport open. If they don't get jets, it may have to close.
Good.
Have you thought about the alternative of talking to Port Toronto and saying, we're not going to allow you to constrain our buildings. We need to build at the heights that make sense economically, and jets are too much of a threat to our developing the new island and the rest of the areas in the east part of the harbor. There's an issue for Waterfront Toronto to look at and see how an airport, especially a Jets airport, would fit with what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, and thank you for the question, Brad. And then if you go to the rendering where we see the island, so if you pop forward for a couple there, you know, I really put you to work, I'm sorry. I appreciate you. If you go one more forward. And so one of the things, you're absolutely right, anytime there is development, certainly in the eastern waterfront, there's a consideration of the flight path today that has to be taken into account. And so when we're doing our work here, as well as with our work over in Quayside, just northwest of that, consideration of the flight path is critical to the City of Toronto and ourselves and our government partners. So we've had many conversations with Ports Toronto to look at the current massing plans we have. We also have a study underway right now, which is looking at increasing massing and increasing affordable housing as part of it. We are currently within the flight path. We're very confident of that, and Ports Toronto has shown us very clearly where they see the flight path, and so we've modeled our plans, including increased density, to ensure that we are within the flight path. So we're paying really close attention to that. The other thing I would note on a similar basis in terms of other uses that could impact ours, there's also not far from here, it's actually just further south, the Portland's Energy Center. And so currently, under the existing emissions coming out of the Portland's Energy Center, that would impact how tall some buildings can go. For example, above a certain height, you couldn't open your windows. It's not going to be a building you necessarily want to live in. And so we're also working really closely over there, though the province recently announced intention to decommission that plant. But we're also having to consider, so we have the airport we have to consider for heights and the flight path. We also have to consider the Portland's Energy Center for emissions, though as I say, the province has announced on their intentions to decommission that.
Just quickly, Joe, the Q400 is the plane that uses the airport now, and it has a very steep glide path, and that's what the current rules are about. Jets don't have that steep glide path. They're much shallower and require a much longer area that's free of buildings. And so you got to look at, I think, what is likely to happen if jets are introduced, because it's a very different situation than it is now in current rules.
Yeah, no, and when we work on looking at the flight path and in talking with ports, I mean, they've told us we should be, and when we've run our numbers, in the clear, but your point is taken is, you know, flight paths can change. So that's something certainly we pay attention to closely. Do we have time for another question?
Maybe one more for Hula?
You're not concerned about people wanting to live under the flight path of jets going low overhead?
Am I concerned?
Yeah.
I mean,
It'll affect.
So I will tell you, when we do our modeling in the eastern waterfront, I mean, we have planes traveling over the eastern waterfront today. And so are we worried about planes over our...
Jets.
So I would say for Waterfront Toronto, we're not worried about planes being over. One of the challenges with the waterfront is we've always had to work in accommodation with a lot of different uses. So we're planning housing in the Portlands with a lot of industrial uses nearby. And so, you know, we have a cement plant nearby. We also, you know, it's when we started building near the Redpath sugar refinery. Like, part of building in a mixed use environment and an industrial environment is we have a range of uses we need to accommodate, plan for, and design well. And I would say included with that, living for as we develop the waterfront, we're aware there are planes flying over, and so we have to plan and design and accommodate to suit a range of uses around us.
Oh, I'm aware. Can I say something about Waterfront Toronto? We've worked with you for over 20 years from the very beginning, and none of this marvelous development would have happened without Waterfront Toronto. It's a virtual miracle for any city to have an agency that able and wonderful. So thank you.
I haven't been there for 20 years, but thank you again for having me. Sorry to have taken so much time.
No problem.
And it's a pleasure.
Great. Thanks so much, Joe. We'll see you again. Kocur is with the Business Improvement Association. He's going to tell us, I think, about upcoming events this fall that we look forward to.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Neil. Thanks, for having us. Yeah, I mentioned the details just in the last week. You might start seeing ads up for this Waterfall Festival. We purposefully didn't announce too many details of it until the start of September. Because there's so many things going on in the summer, we didn't want to confuse it with that. But also because the details weren't really final. Some actually are. There will still be things announced as part of this, probably up until the weekends of it. But basically the last weekend of September and the first weekend of October, hopefully we'll be happy with a number of things going on the waterfront at the same time. So you can go to the next slide, Neil. So the map that you'll start to see on the website, waterfallfestival.ca, is sort of showing that there are just quite a few things going on over those 2 weekends, about 6 to 10 different things each day for the Saturday and Sunday of each weekend. And I won't go into too many details specifically. We might come back to this map if there's questions, but next slide. So, and I also need to say, it's a bit hard to see because there's so many, but this is a collaboration. It's not just the BIA. We've been sort of a lead coordinator trying to find out how to promote this all as one thing over the 2 weekends. But it's actually more than, I think it's now 14 different partners are either programming something or sponsoring something on the waterfront. So we really got a great response from getting all the different waterfront stakeholders to sort of work together towards doing things they would be doing. Some of them would be doing these things anyway in the fall. Others are completely new and complementary to try and have a more complete experience along the waterfront. But then there's also just the fact that we had encouraged everyone to do things over the same 2 weekends. And so I'll go, sorry, next slide, Neil. Actually, do you mind going 3 forward? Sorry, I realize this is a bit out of order.
That's right. Is that it?
No, the next one, sorry. Yeah. So this just to explain how this came up, because you guys understand this neighborhood really well, you know that after the summer, there's a pretty significant drop off in visitation. So we as the business group, of course, are very supportive of trying to figure out how do you have more visitors in the shoulder seasons. So actually, I have to give credit to people at Waterfront Toronto. There was some sort of early work done by them in the last few years about interim destinations and attractions and how could they, like as the full vision that Joe talked about being built out, what could we do? And one thing that kind of like really piqued our interest at the BIA and for some of the rest of us on the waterfront, they pointed out that there's this event in Sydney, Australia called Vivid, which they do in their shoulder season fall, which is actually our spring. It's a bit confusing. But it's basically a 10-kilometer long Harbourfront event. And so the way I say to picture it is, remember last year, Nuit Blanche was great on the waterfront. There was about 40 different installations. I wish I could promise you that many things for this fall, but that was only one night. So our business community does not love Nuit Blanche because as great as it is, it's a huge city initiative. It's only for one night. We have a really hard time getting businesses like Michael's to even stay open for the one extra night of business. But in Australia, it's basically because they've got for 3 or 4 weekends long, they've got this massive 10-kilometer long experience. Because that's so big, they actually are able to use it to attract international visitors to come in their shoulder season when they're not as busy to Sydney, Australia. And so Waterfront Toronto had kind of done this great work pointing out that this would be the ultimate goal we should be trying to get to in those shoulder season events. So Waterfall Festival this year is effectively us kind of doing an early test of how that can potentially work. Successful in terms of getting a whole bunch of stakeholders to be doing things at the same time for the 2 weekends. And now if you go back a couple to the first of there. So to talk about some of the really big ones, we actually don't even show this on our map because where it's launching is actually at Radisson Park in Minisink, which I think I almost got right. And so you've heard a lot about this. The Bentway is taking the lead on this canoes thing that's going to be launching from the new park over in the Portlands, but then it'll be exploring like the eastern sort of side of the harbor. My understanding is they won't come west of Yonge Street, but it's great that the eastern waterfront, where we don't have as many events going on for the rest of the 2 weekends, there'll actually be like a huge event done by the Bentway with support of Waterfront Toronto starting from there. Hopefully you'll see it from your apartments, or you can go to the opening when they launch the boats on the Saturday or the Sunday, the first weekend at Radisson Park. And there's also other things like Waterfront Toronto is doing a public art exhibit that's in the water at Spadina. Can you go to the next slide? There's also things like we tried to combine things where they'd be complementary. So for the first weekend at HTO Park, there's going to be this harvest market by Street Eats. They've been doing great markets at Harbourfront Centre like for the last year, but they're going to be doing a market in HTO Park. And then also there's going to be another makers market by OCAD at the malting silos. You know they've got a bit of a lease to do some programming. They've been working with Nuit Blanche. The second weekend they'll be doing a huge thing for Nuit Blanche with the city on the malting silos. I'm sure you can imagine what it'll be. They've done a great job in the last years. But there'll be 2 markets the first weekend, and then there also, we believe, will be some of the markets at Harbourfront Centre as well, but those aren't finalized. And then the second weekend, they're at the malting silos, I said, will be OCAD doing like a huge light show with the Nuit Blanche. Next slide, Neil. There's also just some additional art things. So I said there's going to be, for both weekends, a market at HTO Park that's never been there before, but there will also be an artist. The Ontario Culture Days is doing their signature exhibit this year at HTO Park that first weekend, where an artist is going to be painting the walkways, and I believe it's going to be interactive. You can come and help paint if you want. I'm probably going to end up having to do it. And then there's also another big art exhibit that's going to be at Harbourfront Centre that'll be in place and installed by the public, I guess, the first weekend, and will be there for the second weekend as well. So I'm not going to get into all the details, but the whole goal is to have like a number of things, as I said, between 6 and 10 different things to do each day, the Saturday and the Sunday of both those weekends. And so please give us feedback, because I think we're actually going to be out, like our team will be out ourselves asking for feedback about how things are going, because we're really trying to use this to learn how we can do a better job working with all the waterfront partners and where we can add value ourselves as the BIA, especially in the fall season, but just also how can we do long continuous events that encourage people to explore the whole waterfront. So it's not just one massive crowd in one park for one weekend, it's hopefully like an extended experience that encourages people to explore all these new parks as they get built out on the waterfront. So can you go to the last slide, I think? And so of course, most of the details, I think there's only 1 or 2 events that aren't fully announced yet, but there's details about pretty much everything already on waterfallfestival.ca, and that's going to be the most up-to-date source, aside from please follow us and the others that are doing events on social media. And I want to end with another note. Next slide. I'm also hoping you guys will let me come back and chat again after, because as I said, we're trying to learn how the BIA can kind of support events like this and help support partnerships with all the different great partners that do events or art or markets on the waterfront for the future. And I also think that includes community events, because I think that, I didn't show pictures of it, but there were 2 things that came up in the last month. One that got postponed, the councillor's office had reached out about doing a movie night on the eastern waterfront in Sherburne Common, and we just immediately said yes. It actually got postponed due to weather, but I hope they're still going to do it again at some point. And another thing that came up was the East Waterfront Community Association asked us for a little bit of financial support to help with an event that they wanted to put together very quickly for the Labor Day weekend. And it was a really good start. We liked it. We'd be more than happy to support it too, but I also realized that it was kind of a reminder to us that I think we should probably, again, after we do a bit of a review of where we can be most valuable with events after this fall event that we're testing out, we want to come to the 3 community associations, including of course yours, and ask where we could potentially be a better supporter for the types of community events you guys would like to see. Just one random example that actually came from, I hope you don't mind me shouting out someone in your office, MPP Glover, but apparently Liberty Village does a great job of getting their businesses to have things going on during Halloween. And so it just seems like a fairly obvious thing. Like if we want our businesses to be closer with the residents in the community, that seemed like a kind of day where we should be pushing them to be more active, have something to give away, so that there's more places to go get candy than the concierge desk at the front of each building that we know about. Right. So again, I think I'd really like to hope, I don't know what the right combination of people is from this group, whether you have a working group that would be more interested in talking to events, or whether it's to come back and speak at an actual meeting, but I'll reach out to you guys again, hopefully in October, when we have more time about that as well.
Right. We have a meeting in November. Yeah, so we can talk in October about the meeting in November.
Sounds good.
All right, great. Thanks so much. Massimo from Harbourfront is here as well to tell us about all the cool stuff that is happening there.
Thank you.
Take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. There is a little bit of a presentation I did put together. I kind of got a little bit of a late notice on that I would be speaking here this evening, but happy to do so. So please bear with me because the presentation, he's trying to pull it forward. There is a little video there that we really would like to share with the community about what our last summer or this past summer looked like. But I will jump into some of the details around our summer. I think everyone's pretty well in tune with the excitement that was around Harbourfront Centre this past summer. We had kick off the year with an incredible Canada Day celebration. The fireworks spectacular was supported by about everybody in the city of Toronto. I could list everyone's names that is in this room and beyond. It took really a village to make it happen. And it came together quite beautifully and it went off safely. We don't have all our numbers in as far as statistics are concerned with regards to how many people were in attendance and everything. However, we do know that we had seen over 80,000 plus people at Harbourfront Centre for that celebration. That's post-pandemic, before Harbourfront has ever seen those kinds of numbers in the past. So it was quite spectacular. And I'm seeing some faces in here that supported us. And I sincerely have to say thank you, to the mayor's office, and the police, the Marine unit, and it's just, it goes on and on and on. It was a spectacular event to see 80,000 people leave quietly and orderly. And that took a lot of coordination. So I'm grateful because we didn't do that alone. We didn't do that alone.
Could you speak in the mic?
Yes, sorry, I could speak in the mic and then you're only gonna be like, oh boy. We also saw the opening of the Queen's Harbour restaurant in July, and we saw the revitalization of the Amsterdam Brew House. They did quite a bit of renovations on their patios outside. There's a lot of planting and de-weeding and cleaning. As a result of all that, we have much improved infrastructure that was needed. There's deficiencies, there's things we have to work out, and like anything that we do, there's always opportunities. And we certainly are always listening to our neighbors and trying to respond to those things. And on that note, I actually would like to introduce you to someone, I know you're not speaking, don't worry. In the back of the room is Joanna Sorelli. She has joined Harbourfront Centre as a site operations manager. And the reason she's here tonight is she wants to put a face to their neighbors. And she's the foot on the ground. She's the one dealing with the garbage on the property. Any concerns of our neighbors, oftentimes she becomes the face to speak to people and support. So we're really happy to have her with us, and thank you for coming with me tonight and being my cheerleader. So yeah, please take a moment at the end of the night, introduce yourselves. As we moved on in the summer, we had quite a bit of successes and quite a bit of learnings, for sure. We saw free movie nights. Those returned and were very popular. We saw return on the dancing on the square. It used to be the dancing on the pier for those who've been here long enough. We saw a new piece that Tim, you spoke about, was the night markets. That was with the support of Street Eats. And we also had a farmer's market during the day. Now, that one's a little bit more of a learning process for us. That was not perhaps as successful. We'd like to see it. We're still running it through the rest of this summer, but we're paying attention and looking at what those opportunities are. Some of the feedback we got is maybe the time of the day that's operating wasn't perhaps the right time. So there's always opportunities, but the night market has been quite the opposite. It's become a different item for us to manage, and it's been very successful. Then we continued with the Summer Music in the Garden programming, which is still continuing, and it's been a terrific summer. And then in between there, we sprinkled festivals. So it was a very busy summer, and the weekly activities throughout it almost feel like it hasn't stopped. And so our visitation, this is an interesting statistic, this is one that I was able to pull out. We saw a 31% increase over last year of visitors beyond 40 kilometers of the city. So that's a pretty decent number to capture something like that. So that means that we're doing some good things here, and that will help us be more sustainable so that we can continue to do those things. Welcome to the fall. Kind of there almost. And so in the fall, we have quite a bit of a lineup happening. It's a bit of a break, but Tim, we have some slides that are going to cross each other because we work together on a lot of these things. I'll say while the summer may be behind us, I'm going to read this because I think this is terrific. Fall on our campus brings a whole new experience by the waterfront. So the autumn, as our campus comes alive with public art, culture, immersive dance, science, music, and a giant waterfall festival, all made possible through the incredible partnerships with the Ontario Science Centre, the WBIA, the power plant, and the Museum of Toronto. It really takes a village to make this thing work, and there's more people beyond that list, but it's really terrific. So we continue with the Science Centre at Harbourfront Centre, so they continue their Kids Spark program with us. They're good with us up to December at this point, is what we know. The Power Plant Contemporary Art Gallery is going to be starting a new show starting the 7th of November. It's running to March 22nd, so they're about to go into their transition from their show. And then there's the Fall Harvest Market, Sustainable Makers Market, and we have a whole bunch of other events that are happening that are quite exciting and they're very immersive. The silent disco headsets that people are really actively using, where there's these dances and immersive experiences. We have one with the Great Gatsby that's coming. We have different experiences, so please stay tuned to look at that. Now, our brochure for the fall/winter has gone to print today. I think we may have just received them in today. And the map that was shown on there by Tim is in that brochure as well, as we kind of bring together the waterfront. So we're representing the bigger part of the waterfront, not just the center, so to speak. But that is kind of what I was able to put together in a short piece. I hope that's acceptable, and thank you.
So thanks so much for jumping in the last minute there with very little notice. Oh, there, we're back. Thanks for coming in at short notice. We'll talk to you soon. Do you have a question? Go ahead.
Yes, what about the light in the evenings? It's so dark there where the power plant and all that. You go to a show and then you come out and it's very dark and then you go.
Yeah, that's the question is it me or is it?
I think it's supposed to be up.
Testing.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. The question was, it's really dark by the power. Okay, this is not totally me. The question, oh my gosh. The question. The question was, it's really dark in the evening around the power plant, and can we do anything to get the lighting improved in that area? That's a very good question. Safety and security has been on the forefront of our minds. We continue to do a lot of improvements in our campus. Lighting is one of them, I would like to maybe talk to you a little bit after about that if I can, just to make sure I understand the exact spot you're speaking of. But there is improvements in lighting in key areas that we have identified. That might be one of them, I'm not too certain.
Can I suggest you have the solar panels in several of the buildings, then why you don't put the self-stand solar panels with lights? You see that in many
Yes.
places?
Running the panels vertically on the building?
Yeah, well, you can have
Solar lighting.
a solar
Solar
power, big,
I think.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
You guys should talk after
Yeah.
and just see
Happy to talk.
what's going on.
I would just like to thank you so much, and the new CEO. You have done such a marvelous job, and to bring all these numbers up.
Right.
It's just.
The revitalization
Every day it's
of Harbourfront.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I know how much you have worked. Thank you.
Very kind of you, thank you.
We're talking about the markets. The morning market, the day market is okay. The night market is very, very noisy.
Yes.
It should not be in this where it is. If you wanna have a night market, have it down by the stage, which is built for that purpose, where the sound goes out to the lake, not in amongst all the buildings.
Right.
And it's not only that, we don't even have a telephone number we could call. If we have a complaint or something, that we can call and talk to you. Not one. We have a building behind us being built right now, and we have their phone numbers that we have. Harbourfront, nothing. You can't get, they can't. So I suggest you rectify that.
Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. I hear you. And it's not our intention to make things
Use
worse.
the
We're
mic.
trying to make things better, and I hear you, and we'll take that back. Thank you.
Well, give me a number, that's what I want.
Just as a counter to that, I'd like to say we live right on the edge of Harbourfront, and we are absolutely astounded about everything. It ends sharply at 11, and they've cleared it all out by midnight. It's
Yes.
incredibly well run. So I'm sorry the gentleman was disturbed by it, but we've been very impressed by how you've been managing that particular event, because you've had so many people attending it.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It is, thank you. That's very kind of you. And you know, we can't get everything 100%, but we strive for it. We will continue to do so.
I would say, we did have a meeting with Massimo, did have to do with noise, because clearly there is sometimes a noise problem for some people. And I certainly agree, and I think we talked about a number of things that could be done, and I think one of them clearly would be a number to call, or something that, you know, there'd be a record or something, kind of a website where you could go to and you could make a comment or something like that, right? Where you could say, yeah, just to promote dialogue.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you.
Okay, thank you,
very
folks.
much.
Thank you so
We
much.
always love to we have two police officers from different departments that I'd asked to come up. I think they're here really more to sort of hear from us. But nevertheless, I'd like them to come up and just say hello and maybe say a word or something about what they do. The two people are Stacy Kehoe, Kello, and Richard Bobbis, who's from 52 Division. So Stacy is from the Marine Unit, which is where I keep my kayak, right next to it, so I know it well. I use the facilities there sometimes. And Richard's from 52 Division, we all know. I think we had addressed a question to you about jet skis and things and speeds and where are we at with that. I've actually been kind of impressed with, I have seen you guys out give some tickets this year. I think more possibly than previously. But I know there's a concern about speeds and there's some unsafe stuff going on out there. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so Stacy Kello with the Marine Unit right across the street there. I think I did a presentation with this community about a year ago, just on the assets of what we do at the Marine Unit.
It's just right very close to the mouth.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
I can probably not even use this, but yeah. So this year especially, since COVID, with more boats on the water, more people getting their boat license or not getting their boat license that we're having this year. There is, like, we're up 46% on rescues this summer. We're up 30% on our enforcement, and overall calls as well. I think, I don't have the numbers with me. Since COVID though, we have been climbing. We've been up every year, this year especially. So I'm about to go on, finishing up the stats from this summer. I'm gonna go to Kingston with Transport Canada. I work with them almost daily. With some of the stuff that we want to see changed and the safety things that everybody else is seeing on the water. It's just to share your frustration out there. It's everywhere. Cottage Country, RCMP is seeing it, OPP, I work with all of them. So, and in Toronto too. So all those concerns are being voiced. The Sea-Doo problem has been a huge problem, mostly with the rental personal watercrafts in Toronto Harbour, but at all of our beaches as well. At that Woodbine, Humber, at Bluffs, Hanlan's, not as much, but everywhere. That's a huge problem. The second one is these pleasure crafts that are operating with a commercial capacity, taking on passengers for hire. So we're working very hard. Like I said, our rescues have gone up 46%, and most of those have been the personal watercrafts, the rentals. We're seeing a lot of inexperience, and we are working with Transport Canada to hopefully, like the rental companies are doing a lot of things illegally, and one of them is the rental agreement. So a lot of inexperienced people are renting these personal watercrafts with no boat license, and they're using that rental agreement. The rental agreements we're finding are just a printed off waiver, really, just for a money grab. They have no experience when they get out on the water, and we're seeing a lot of the equipment inefficient. And then also the reckless operation as well, the non-respect for the water, because they don't even have a boat license. So we're frustrated. We've stopped as many as we can. I've been at the Marine Unit for 18 years. We have the same manpower, and our calls for service have gone up. We're doing about 600 calls a month in the summer. So I think, yeah.
Okay.
So I can go on for quite a while, no, our guys have worked extremely hard this summer, and we continue to do so. And I'm the officer as well, to listen to if anybody wants to speak with me, or leave my business card as well for follow-up on some of these complaints, and then work projects with our teams as much as we can.
Thank you.
Okay, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. Richard, do you have anything to say about basically crime, I guess, is really what we want to talk to about with you.
Thank you very much. I represent 52 Division, and specifically the Waterfront community. We currently have 3 neighborhoods in 52, Yonge Street, Queen Street, and of course this neighborhood now. Now, one thing I'd like from this particular group is to work collaboratively to find out what are the major issues affecting your community. Now, is it homelessness, aggressive homelessness? Is it encampments, drug abuse? If there are traffic issues, please tell me specifically. Are they the micro mobility devices? Yes. Is it Uber? Is it general traffic when there's a large event just north of this community? Please forward your concerns or your issues to your security department. I understand it's Julie is running. I don't know the nomenclature of your group. It's a security team or?
Well, we're Mark and I are the representatives on the CPLC, so 52 Division's Community Police Liaison Committee. So yes, any concerns you have of a police nature, you can share through the YQNA, and it will get directed to Mark and I to then voice.
Okay.
That's perfect, thank you. And we currently have 4 officers that are assigned specifically to the waterfront community. We work on a 7 and 7 schedule. I mean, 7 days on, 7 days off. So there's always coverage. Now, because we're downtown in 52 Division, which is in the center of the largest city in Canada, whatever happens around the world often reverberates in our division from a geopolitical point of view. Now, these neighborhood officers, sometimes when we have to deal with protests, we have to take them out of your community in order to deal with those protests. In the typical year, we deal with over 1,000 protests. And the last several years, as a result of the Hamas and Israel war, we've been dealing with about 600 protests specifically on that topic. So sometimes you'll see the officers, but when there's a large protest, then because our resources are limited, we have to pull them out of your community. Again, if there's any questions, I'll give you my email at the end of this group meeting, or you can get it from Julie. Thank you very much for your time.
We'll ask a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you something? That one of the big problems here is, of course, when suddenly 40,000 people pour out of the Rogers Center or other big events, and you have traffic control at these times. And I know the police has a big role in that, and so have traffic wardens from the city, but the two don't seem connected. Is there a reason why you can't cooperate?
Well, simply because they're not part of the police force.
Oh, I know.
They work for the city, and we do cooperate at certain intersections, but generally speaking, we do not supervise them. We do not oversee them in whatsoever. We do not allocate what intersections they should focus on. They don't work nights. They only work during the mornings and the day, and the aforementioned events are usually in the night. Today, for example, we have Lady Gaga with approximately 20,000 seats sold, and the Blue Jays with 50. So we have 70,000 people just north of us.
Yeah.
So at the conclusion of this meeting, I'm going to go up there and deal with something called the Downtown Safety Plan, which is what you alleged. We have to get rid of these cars as quickly as possible, take care of the pedestrians as safely as possible. So you're right, it's going to get a lot busier, let me tell you, especially with FIFA.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, guys. Stacey, I'm gonna get your email or something.
Email, yeah.
I have a question.
Oh, somebody has a question.
The community police officers you mentioned,
Yes.
do they ever have public meetings?
Specifically themselves?
Yeah.
No.
Because in the next division over, they do with in coordination with the PCLC.
Well, we do
But
have the
you can-
CPLC, and they are part of that.
No, I know, but you can actually go and meet your community.
Oh, absolutely, you can meet them.
And
So
it's a
we do
mixture.
sponsor like the Coffee with the Cop programs, so the CPLC does host this. We had one in the fall at Union Station where our NCOs were present and the community
So
could come
can
and
we get
engage
that
with them.
information out to the public?
Yeah, so we try to update on the YQNA website.
Nice to know who they are.
With events that are going
Know
on.
their faces?
So you can absolutely do that. There's a prayer walk next Thursday afternoon that some of the NCOs I expect will be participating in. And that's an opportunity to also speak with them.
Can you say the condo?
So that's on
people know, or-
the YQNA website. So we posted it. Dee posted it this
You
week.
guys should talk afterwards.
Thank you.
What's happening?
Excellent, thank you.
Marguerite, are you going to talk about, you're the treasurer, there she is. And she is our esteemed treasurer, which is an extremely important and sensitive job. She's going to tell us the state of our financial affairs.
Thank you, Ed. Can I have this? Thank you.
It'll brighten in a moment.
And then you can forward it
Should
to the next one. So I took over as a treasurer in April, and we had $2,248 in the bank. And since then, we had mainly expenses. So I like to thank everybody who has put money into the donation box, but obviously who has not, still feel free to.
Where is the donation box? Oh, it's back there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's under the supervision from
There's a
Celia.
big box back there.
Yeah.
It says donations on it in very prominent letters.
Yeah. So.
And it says, I usually say it's like church. When they pass the plate, it's good to put money in, because if you don't know what's going to happen. So pay attention to that box back
And
there.
I'd like
Thank you.
to thank everybody who has contributed already. So right now we are down to 1,600. So if we can bring it up again to around 2,000, that would be great. And I also want to let you know where the money goes. So the account for the neighborhood association is has a monthly fee associated to it. Every time we have to do an e-transfer, it costs us also money on $1.50. And the Zoom expenses for Zoom is nearly $300, and for the website for a year, $271. So that's where the most of the money goes. So it's always good to have some extras.
We have a donation button on the website, am I right?
That's correct, and there's also a QR code at the end. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
So, if you don't have any cash for the donation box, look for that button and think of YQNA. So that concludes our evening. Thank you very much for coming.